Kick and chase by Mullins. Kick and chase again by Mullins. It'll be a miracle. Oh, it is a miracle. Fafita tries to crash his way over. He does. Fafita got the ball over the line. Hunter's kick is over the sideline for a 40-20.
Yeah, g'day champions and welcome to 40-20 Sports. Today's episode, we're going to bring the final two teams we've got to preview before the season starts. We'll be looking at the Sharks and the Tigers. If you've missed any videos, please go back and have a bit of a look through our YouTube channels or Spotify. They'll all be there. These are the final two we've got, so she's all guns blazing after these two. We'll be talking about the trials. We've just had two on the weekend there. We'll talk about them a bit later, but yeah, these are the final two we've got in the bag, and then it is all down to the serious business. Before we get into it though, we would like to drum home our 40-20 Cup League code. That is 122155. Huge prize there. First prize $500, second prize 250 bones, and third prize is a merch pack. The only thing you need to do to qualify for that is either be subscribing to us on YouTube or following us on Instagram. If you'd like to do both, that'd be much appreciated. Instagram, there's a heap more better gear on there. We'll be doing all our player profiles. We've nearly finished them up for the preseason. There'll be stuff like captaincy choices, ins and outs, trades, how our team's looking, interacting with the fans and the people in the 40-20 League Cup, the winners of each week, and that sort of stuff will be in there. So please jump onto that. It's 40-20 Sports, spelt 40-20. Go and have a bit of a look at that, and yeah, give us a follow if you can. That'd be much appreciated. Anyway, we'll run into it. We'll start with the Sharkies. Sharkies last year had a fourth place finish with 16 wins and 8 losses, so a really good year for the Sharks. They were the second best defensive team in the competition behind the Penrith Panthers, which is pretty interesting, I think. I didn't really have them in that sort of calibre defensively. I thought they were more of an attacking team more than anything. Look, they've been pretty successful during the regular season for the most couple of years, but again, the semi-finals, they're bowing out to the teams that go on and sort of make the grand finals. They got absolutely hammered by the Panthers and the Storm in this year's semi-finals. So they'll be looking to try and rectify that. Look, a big thing was Nico's confidence as well. I think as his confidence and his injuries suffered, I think the Sharkies suffered. I really think they've recruited well with Adam Fanua-Blake. I think that was their glaring issue, is they didn't have that big alpha male forward to really drum home and get them home in big competition games like in the finals. But I think Adam Fanua-Blake will be a fantastic signing for them. Anyway, the gains, like we said, Adam Fanua-Blake, he comes over from the Warriors, and Hohepapuru comes up from the Canberra Raiders there. The losses, Jackie Williams, he's gone off to the Eels. Royce Hunt makes his way over to the West Tigers, and Sateni Takamo is off to the Knights. So Not a great deal of gains and losses there, but some big ones in old Adam Fanua-Blake. A massive signing there for the Sharkies. Their first couple of weeks is the Panthers. They've got them in Vegas, so that'll be a tricky one. Cowboys away, so they go Vegas, fly home for a week, and then go back up to North Queensland. Then they've got the Rabbitohs at home, Bulldogs at home, who are very good defensively, and then the Raiders away, which is always a bit tricky down in Canberra. So it is a bit of a hard start for the Sharkies. I think a lot of travel involved in those first two rounds with Vegas. Coming home, they'll settle back into Sydney, then they've got to go back up to North Queensland and reset for the start of the season. But yeah, the Rabbitohs, everyone's predicting them to be a bit of a fair side this year, and then the Bulldogs, who are very good defensively, they play them. Canberra Raiders down in Canberra, also a very tricky assignment at times, so a bit of a hard start to the start of the season, Anyway, we'll get stuck into them. Hooker, Blake Brayley, 519k with a 53-point average on last year. Look, there's a little bit of interest around him. A little bit of interest comes mostly from the attraction of Adam Fanua-Blake. People are saying, he'll be able to put him over the line for a good try or two. Maybe Blake Brayley gets a couple of attacking stats, but I'm not overly convinced by it. If you had a look through last year, a lot of Adam Fanua-Blake's tries sort of come one off the ruck, one off the half anyway. I'm not sure that Blake Brayley will benefit an overly great amount. There may be one or two crash plays, but he had a lot of attacking options with Tommy Hazelton last year. I think he scored a phenomenal amount of tries towards the back end of the season. So Blake Brayley, bit of a no-go for me. Look, he will play 80 minutes week in, week out. There's no doubt about that. But 12 out of the 24 games last year, he went under 50 points. So Not a great deal of upside there. I think 80 points once in the whole season, so I'd be avoiding for someone over 500k for that as well. In the front row forward, Adam Fanua-Blake, 706k, 72-point average on last season. Now, there's been a little snippet that come out. Adam Fanua-Blake has said he predicts that he's going to possibly get less minutes there in what he was getting at the Warriors. Look, I'm not sure how true that is, if that's just a bit of hype, but he is quoted saying, it may result in him getting less minutes, but a lot more impact. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. Look, he was the highest average of any front row forward last year by 4, so he's a decent way better than what everyone else was there in that category. I think for sure he'll be in the top 3 front rowers this year again. The only thing I can sort of put down is if he says he's going to get a little bit less minutes. Maybe he averaged 60 minutes a game last year. Maybe that goes down to about 55. I don't think there's going to be a massive regression, but I just think at the start of the season, you want to look for a bit of value. I don't think he presents a lot of value. I think if we can work our way up to getting him by Origin time, fantastic, and then go from there. The other boys there, Tommy Hazelton, Tommy Rudolph, and Oregon Kaufusi. Look, I think they sort of cancel each other out. I think Tommy Hazelton went on a bit of a try-scoring, barnstorming end of the season, and again, he got one in the trial on Friday night there, but the worrying thing for me is that he actually played in that game. That seemed to be a bit more of their reserve grade, bar a couple of outside backs. It's a bit of a mix, but yeah, look, I don't like the fact that he was even playing in that game. Again, I think he's a little bit overpriced for what his output could be because of the amount of tries he scored last year. Toby Rudolph, Oregon Kaufusi, those sort of fellas, I think they'll just cancel each other's minutes out, especially with Adam Fanua-Blake coming. I think he'll take up a good portion of the minutes there. For the 2 RFs, Britton Nickera, he had a 69-point average on last year. He is worth 682k to start the season. He started the season really poor last year. I think by round 14, he had just a 54-point average, and you could have picked him up for about 524k, something around there. Ridiculously cheap for a man of his talents and how well known he is in the Supercoach way of scoring points and that. The last 11 games of the season, he had an 84-point average, so he really brought it home during the end of the season. It sort of coincided with Nico Hines missing a lot of games as well, which is a little bit weird because you would think those two would work together really well. Look, in those 11 games, he had 2 games over 100 points and also another 4 in the 90s, so he was just absolutely phenomenal. He was freakish towards the back end of the year. He seemed to really step his game up, especially when Nico Hines was out. Look, I'll be hoping history repeats itself. Like I said, he's got a bit of a hard draw to start the season. Hopefully he can go down from that 682k price range and can get down around 500 something, in the 500ks. That'd be awesome. Like we said, a lot of travel between Vegas, North Queensland, and the Rabbits and Dogs. Fingers crossed he just starts a little bit slower than what he would. He's got a healthy base of 45 per game, which is, I thought was an interesting stat because usually we sort of, think of him as a bit more of an attacking upside player, which he is. He's got it in him with these 100-point games, 90-point games. But yeah, 45 base is pretty good for a man on an edge there. Cam McInnes, 585k, has dual 2RF hooker. Look, not for me. I think he's a reliable option if you were looking for someone in draft that has those duals, but only 6 games out of 23 when he went under 50 points, which is decent, but again, no upside for him. Halfback, Nico Hines, huge talking point here, 735k with a 75-point average on last year. A lot of chat last year was where Braden Trindle basically becoming the dominant half, took all his points off him. A lot of times people say things and people run with it, and they seem to find a way to make it sound true, but I'm not sure that is actually how it all went down last year. I think the main factor in his downfall was obviously the confidence of Origin, injuries to his lower leg that he sustained, and I think after those two, he just came back with absolutely zero confidence in what he was doing. So round 11, mind you, round 11, he played with Trindle throughout the whole year. He had a 93-point average and was sitting at $1.1 million. So you can't really say that, Trindle's the reason that he doesn't get enough ball and get enough points. The man was 1.1 mil. He was averaging 93 points a game, nearly 100 points a game there for Nico. The price at 735k, I think, is decent. It just all sort of went downhill when he came into Origin. I think the game before Origin, he had a 3 against Penrith where he lasted 10 minutes, something like that, an injury-affected game. After Origin, he went 68, 48, and 68 again. Got the leg injury there, had 7 weeks, or 7 games off anyway, and then came back just before the semis with a 47 and a 50. So I'm more inclined to say that his downfall was the confidence and the lower leg injury. Look, if he can get that back, and he's sitting at, round 10, I think he's no chance to play Origin this year now, based on the history of what he's got in Origin, the poor bastard. But look, by round 11, 93 point per average, he's 735k. He's got a tough draw to start the season. Maybe we get a bit of a look at him and see how everything's looking within Nico. I think the outside noise of him and Trindle, what's going on there? Yes, Trindle is more dominant than what his half pairing was with Moylan, but still, it's obviously not taking all his points off him with this. These are the stats here. So 11 games of footy, and he's up at $1.1 million. He could easily do that again this year. A bit of talk around Cleary not being right for round 1. I think if he's not right for round 1, you just put Nicho Hynes in and stick with that. If not, a couple of cheapy options look to be there in the halfback spot. So I'll be pushing shit uphill to get him in my side, I think. You get a bit of a look at him with a hard draw to start the season, but yeah, I think there's a little bit of misconception about what's going on with Nicho Hynes and the Trindle thing. Speaking of that man in the 5'8", Braden Trindle, 553k with a 56-point average on last year. Did have a 65-point average when Nicho was not at his best and out of the side. He also did have the goal-kicking duties when Nicho was absent. So, look, 553k for him. He's got too many low scores in him. It's not for me. CTWs, look, this is a bloody tricky one. I'm not sure that there is a great deal of value out of any Sharkies back, and that's not a knock on them. It's quite the opposite. I just think any given day they can go 100. You've got Mulatalo, Ramian, Iro, Katoa, they'll all be there. Any given day they can go 100. It just seems as if they're going to rob points off each other. So one week they're going to go 100, the next they're going to go 20. I know that's how it works out with averages and everything, but the yo-yos and up and downs for me, for the Sharks back. We've seen it so many times. Mulatalo will go on a stretch of 3 or 4 games. He'll score 6 tries in 4 games or something like that. He'll boost up. Everyone will jump on him. And then all of a sudden, he just plummets down in price. It's just a bit too sporadic, the scores, for me, for any of these Sharks backs. I think the way to do it will be, fingers crossed, in the first 6 weeks, you see one of these guys, particularly more of a Ramian or Iro. I think Iro and Ramian have got decent bases, so they're a little bit more reliable, but especially Mulatalo and Katoa, if there's any quiet activity, they tend to go left instead of right for a couple of games, and it works out that the left is better than the right, or whoever their attacking structure works. If that sort of happens, I'd be looking after a couple of weeks to see if I could pick some up with a lot of value then, because it will swing. They just have these incredible runs where they hit these 100-point games, and then these incredible lows of 20s and 30s. So to start the season, I think it's a no-go with any of these guys. I'd just be, the play, I think, will be to have a look, keep an eye on how their scores are going. If they drop dramatically, they're the kind of team and the kind of guys their price and their scores will fire back up. Fullback, William Kennedy, 472k with a 48-point average on last year. Look, I think he's under a tremendous amount of pressure. He's never really been Supercoach relevant, and I don't see that being any different this year. I think he's under a heap of pressure. Again, I'm a little bit worried why he played the first trial when they weren't full strength. I know there was a couple of guys in there, but you would imagine your fullback is one of your key portions of how your spine works and how your attack flows and that. Maybe, I don't know, Fitzgibbon wants to see a little bit more out of him, see how he's coming into the season. But I'd be looking at this guy, Cade Dykes, 198k bottom dollar cheapie. There was a lot of chat last year that he may have got the starting spot. I'm not 100% convinced on it. He's coming back from an ACL injury. I mean, he sustained that very early last year, so all reports he should be up and running, ready to go. But I just think Will Kennedy's under a little bit of pressure. I don't see him not starting the start of the season. I think absolutely he'll start the start of the season. But if there's pressure on the Sharkies and they lose a couple of games, I don't think I would be too surprised if there wasn't a chance of a fullback coming in. And Cade Dykes he's very well regarded at the Sharkies there. So he could be one to watch. Just keep an eye on him. Cronulla, this year, I've got them anywhere from 1st to 6th. I think they will be a premiership threat with the addition of Adam Fanua-Blake. I think he is the missing part that they needed last year, just that ultimate warrior up front. I think it's a fantastic signing. Need to get their combination of Hines and Trindle clicking. That was their downfall towards the back end of last year. Hines, his confidence was shot, although he has come out and said how happy he is with everything that's going there in the Shire, and there was all this talk about coming into November 1st, when the teams had the players had the chance to do negotiations and whatnot. Hines was on the blower to all of them, saying, "Come on, guys, we've got to re-sign. We've got something special going on here." So, look, they finished 4th last year. I think they haven't lost a lot. They've gained probably the best, if not the top 1 or 2 front row forward in the game. I think that's only going to benefit them. There'll be a lot of watch on Will Kennedy. I think that is the only issue where they're going to struggle. All these teams over the last couple of years, the one thing they really have in common is they have a gun halfback and they seem to have a gun fullback. I'm just not sure Will Kennedy's the answer there for the Sharkies. I think he may be under a bit of pressure. Anyway, that's all we've got for the Sharkies. Next up on our list, the 3-time Wooden Spoon champions, the West Tigers, finished 17th. Wooden Spoon again for them, 3 straight in a row. They had 6 wins, 18 losses. Like I said, 3 Wooden Spoons in a row. That'll tell you all you need to know about what their season was last year. No surprise, they had the worst attack and defence in the competition. Massive ask for Benji to come in with that sort of roster for his first blooding of a coaching job there at the Old Faithful Stomping Ground for him. Look, they just lack the roster. 100% they lack the roster. I think they've recruited really well in the off-season. They've got a couple of big names coming in. We'll talk about them a little bit later. But look, if I was a Tigers fan, I wouldn't be expecting another spoon, put it that way. I think exciting year ahead for the Tigers. Even if, it's not all smooth sailing, I think it'll be a much better year than the years gone past. For the gains for them, Jerome Luai, he comes over from the Panthers. He's accompanied by Sunia Taruva there as well from the Panthers. Jarrell Skelton comes over from the Dogs. He'll be a handy assignment on the wing there. Royce Hunt from the Sharks, Jack Bird from the Dragons, and Terrell May makes his way over from the Roosters. Some really good signings there. The losses. Junior Tupou, he goes to the Dolphins. Isaiah Papali'i, he makes his way over to the Panthers. Aiden Caesar is off to the UK for Hull FC. Johnny Bateman up at the Cowboys. Stefano Utikamano, he's gone to the Melbourne Storm. Solomon Alamano, he has gone to Rugby Union. And Jaden Sullivan has been a late transfer over to the Rabbits. Start of the season for the Tigers there, it's actually a decent start of the season. They've got the Knights at home, the Eels away, Dolphins away, Warriors at home, and then the Broncos away. I can see them having a pretty decent start to the year, Supercoach-wise. I think the Knights, they're a bit iffy in defence now and then. Eels, I can't see a massive change in the Eels this year. And then the Dolphins, I think those 3 games could be potential for quite a few points being scored if you are a Tigers fan. We'll get into them. The hookers there, Api Coruscant, 612k, 62-point average on last year. Look, not a lot of value for Api. I think there's a little bit of concern if he's going to retain the kicking duties or not. Adam Dewey, as he has to be announced. He is a good chance of kicking the goals. He strikes them quite well as well. I think the big thing for Appy will be the signing of Terrell May. I think one off the ruck, Appy, straight short ball to Terrell May. He's a bit of a barnstormer. I think it sort of evens out. If he loses the kicking, he's probably going to lose about 8 points a game, I think it was on average. But I think he'll make that up in attacking stats. So I could see Appy around about that 60-point mark. Look, does miss a lot of tackles, Appy, but again, he works himself to a standstill. We've seen him many times last year coming off. He was absolutely gassed. It'll be good to see him with a bit of company around him this year. Look, has a 37 average in base and has hit 60-plus scores in only 50% of his games. So like I said, bit up and down. Look, you know what you're going to get from him. It'll be around 60-point average. There'll be some good games in there. There'll be some bad games in there. But yeah, look, not for me. I think just a bit too high price at 612k. I think there's a bit better value out there in the Supercoach realms than Api Coruscant. For the front row forward, guys like this, Terrell May, 597k, has a 61-point average, but that is based on 45-minute average that he got for the Chookies last year. I think there's a lot of speculation about his minutes. There's a lot of podcasters coming out there saying, oh, he's going to get 70. I can see a world where he's getting 80. I think that's a bit of bullshit. 55 minutes a game, I think, would be decent. It's sort of stock standard for a guy with a big motor that can play these minutes, 55 to 60. I think that is sort of what we're going to look at. I think that is what I'll be basing him off, picking him at the start of the season, and it's fantastic viewing. Look, yeah, the talks of 80, I think, are a bit of a fantasy. Even the 70 a game, I think that's a bit of a fantasy. They do have a decent forward rotation there with the likes of Clemmer, Twal, those sort of boys. But yeah, I can see a world where he does get a lot of big game minutes because they're going to ask of him these minutes. But yeah, 11 games over 50 minutes last year for the Chookies. This is where it gets a bit juicy for him. He had an average of 80, which included 3 100-point games, and only the one game where he played the full 80 minutes in that. So it's very good. Average of 80 over 50 minutes is fantastic viewing for a front row forward where you don't usually see that sort of upside. In those 11 games that he played over 50 minutes, he went under 60 just the once. So I think it's a no-brainer. He's sitting at about 47% ownership. I think that'll grow to about 60 by the time the season starts, when everyone starts getting the word that this guy will be an out-and-out gun for the season. Royce Hunt, 249k, 25-point average he's based on. Just a 23 minutes a game last year he was averaging with the Sharkies. They were a little bit stacked in the forward pack. He just didn't get the minutes. He was coming off the bench, being a massive wrecking ball impact player. He's a fantastic football player, Royce Hunt. Look, I'm not fully convinced he starts. I think they'll probably go with Terrell May and David Clemmer, although I do think he will have a massive uptick in the minutes there. I could see him getting anywhere from 35 to 40. I think Clemmer's probably done with big minutes. Alex Twal, he can play big minutes, but I'm not sure how many minutes he will get a game. He'll be coming off the bench. Royce Hunt was running at a PPM, points per minute, of 1.1 last year. So if we see 35 to 40 minutes, if we can get a 40-point average out of him, he's based at 250k, I think that's a fantastic effort. Got these guys that sit there in your front row forward that you get them every year. They're cheapies. They sit there. They make no money. I think he's a decent option. If he can get up around 400k, he'll be an easy move on to someone. In the 2RFs, Samuela Fainu, 517k. He's just one to watch. I think he's one to monitor this year. Nothing too crazy coming from him last year. He finished the year very well, but I would like to see how he goes with another year older, another year experience. He's quite young. There's a bit of speculation what sort of side of the field Luai and Galvin are going to play, so I want to see what happens with Fainu with that. I think if he gets outside Luai, could be a decent option. But again, I'd be giving him the first 2 games to see where he goes. I wouldn't be starting with him. Alex Seyfarth, 435k, 44-point average. A lot of talk around him being the starting second row forward. I think it's more than likely going to happen. That doesn't mean that I'm overly keen on him. I think he's going to make some cash due to the fact that he's going to have an increase in minutes. Look, I'm just not 100% sold on him. He did have 3 games last year where he got the 80 minutes, which were pretty decent to see, 53, 82, and 54. So there is some value in there. But I think there's just a lot better players out there. At 435k, if he comes out and averages 50, which I think is probably reasonable, 50 to 55, he may make 100k. I think there's a lot of guys like Nafua White talking about down there. I just think if they average 50, you're going to make nearly 200k sort of thing. So I think he's a decent option. I'll be watching him. I'll be watching him very, very closely, especially if he plays 80 minutes. I don't think there's a certainty he does play 80 minutes. They do have a lot of young forwards coming through. If he gets the 80, he starts knocking out a couple of 60s, then we'll talk. But I think there's probably better value in that 2RF spot. There's a lot of cheapies coming through in that 2RF spot that are very good. Could make us a heap of cash. I'm just the only knock on him I've got is that I'm not sure he plays 80. He's not a noted try scorer, and he did score a lot of tries towards the back end of last year. But anyway, we'll see how he goes. Jackie Bird, 379k based on a 38-point average. All reports are he's going to start the season at lock. I don't know what that means for his minutes, but if he can get about 55 to 60, I like it. I think it's juicy. I wouldn't be putting him in my second row. I think there's a lot more better value down there, but looking at the guys now, CTWs, I think we're going to be a little bit stranded for cheapies down there. So 379k, he's one of the cheapest options that's more of a viable option there. And the fact that he's CTW 2RF dual is amazing. I think it's all but a slam dunk. I think there's no way, even if he gets only 60 minutes at lock, that he'll average 38. He'll be up around the 50-60 mark. I can't knock it. I think it's a fantastic buy if you're going to start with him in there. Given he gets the lock spot and he's locked into about 60 minutes, where I think he should average at least that. Halfback, we're going to run with Jerome Luai here in this spot. 582k, 59-point average on last year. Look, I've sort of got all his stats, and they all look very pretty from the Panthers when he was lead guy there, but I'm going to throw them all out the window. This is all going to be running off my gut. Look, he hasn't really been Supercoach relevant in the Panthers system, and they have won 4 premierships in a row. I'm just a little wary on how he goes here with the Tigers. I think the Tigers are going to have a massive improvement on this year. That doesn't mean that there's going to be some teething issues. At the start of the season, you see it all the time where these superstars go to new clubs. They have to get this spine right, although he has played with Appy before. He's never played with Galvin, never played with Jareem Buller, never played with Terrell May. Or he has played with Terrell May, in the Samoan duties, but again, that is very sporadic. The other issue for me is that I still think he's not going to get all the ball whenever he wants it. He's got Galvin, who demands a lot of footy. Api Coruscant demands a lot of footy. Still 60-point average is decent on last year as well. I'm not sure how much improvement he has on that. I don't see him as he's going to be these Nickos, Cleary guys who get these 110-point scores in the Tigers outfit. I think it would be different if he stayed with Penrith and he was the lead guy there, but he's not. He's with the Tigers. They've been the worst team in the competition for 3 years. I think it's going to take a couple of weeks until they get up and running with their combinations. 5'8", Lockie Galvin, 624k, 63-point average on last year. Was a standout for the Tigers, and it was his rookie season. I think he was fantastic. He broke the 60-point mark in 52% of his games for a rookie. That's absolutely phenomenal. He showed he's a future star of seasons to come. Look, I think he's sort of maxed out in price. I doubt he goes any higher for the first 6 rounds than a 63-point average. He has a fantastic ball playing game. His offloads are really good for a 5'8". They need to put some weight on the young fella. He still looks very string beanie sort of thing. He's got a disgusting, filthy goatee that he's sort of sporting at the moment. He needs to shave that shit off. I don't know if he's going for a bit of jail vibes or whatnot, but he needs to get rid of that absolute garbage. Look, the easy draw will be good for him, but again, I think at 624k, I think he's maxed out. I wouldn't be going near him. CTW's Gerald Skelton, 499k. His average last year was 63 points. So straight away, a little discount because he only got the 4 games on last year. Comes over from the Doggies. Look, he has a super friendly Supercoach game. He's like a little clone of Greg Marzu. He's an amazing tackle bust. He's busy. He has a good chance of getting an offload away in, seems to be 3 or 4 people on him. He just breaks free, gets the arm away. So I can't fault his game. There is limited things that we've seen on him with a 63-point average. I think he walks into a wing spot there for the Tigers. The only thing that I'm a little bit concerned about is his defence. His defence is pretty average, although not that will affect his Supercoach game. He could miss 4 tackles a game and be minus 4 points on 60 points. So it's not that big a drama. I think the only drama will be if the Tigers start poorly and his defensive reads are quite poor, there is a chance where he could get dropped. Look, I probably won't start with him. I'll be monitoring him very closely in the first 2 rounds. He'll be given the nod, I think, for one of the wing spots. A lot is going to happen with that, with these, like I've talked about, the Tigers players, given them the first couple of weeks, just because of the uncertainty. Look, the points, looks like he's at decent value. He's nearly 120k discount on what he should be with a 63-point average. But yeah, just a bit of unknown around him with the new club. Adam Dewey, 431k based on a 49-point average. The only thing that I can see is a bit of an uptick from him is that last year he came back mid-season from an ACL injury. He does not have a very good history with injuries, with the ACLs and shoulder injuries and whatnot that he's had throughout his career. Does have 5'8" and CTW duels. Probably gets the kicking duties, I think, from Appy. That's not coming from anyone. I'm not 100% certain. I'd love to see this in the trials of who actually gets the kicking duties there. I think it's going to bode their stocks up through the roof for whoever does. But yeah, not one I'm looking at. But again, if he starts getting everything clicking out there in the centre position, which is where he'll start on a 49-point average, I I think he might be a decent pickup in 5'8" if he's kicking goals and the Tigers are firing. But again, I want to see it. I want to see what he can do. The fullback spot, we will run on there. Jareem Buller, 571k, 58-point average on last year. Had a bit of second-year syndrome about him the first couple of games, first half of the year, really. Look, there's no doubting his ability. He's a phenomenal spectacle to watch. He's a big, tall, rangy thing. He's got speed. He can ball play. I think the cavalry around him didn't help his score last year. Look, did hit his straps a bit in the last 6 rounds of the year, which is promising to see. Maybe got his mojo back a bit from his rookie year. He had 2 100-point games and a 74-point average on those last 6 games of last year. So that is promising to see. 2 tons came against the Storm and the Cowboys, which are 2 teams that went multiple weeks into the finals as well. So that, again, is an uptick, I think. Again, he's not for me. But, I mean, if Luai, Terrell May, Api Coruscant, they can set a platform for him in good ball, he could be an attacking opportunity there for them. A lot of potential. Again, one I'm going to watch. I just don't think he's up there with one of the big dogs yet for the competition and who you should be sort of targeting there for your Supercoach team. But anyway, that's about all we've got for the Tigers. For the Tigers, I've got the Tigs 8th to 12th. I think if they do make the 8th, they'll scrape through. Like I said, I think there's going to be a lot of teething issues. A bit Mike Tyson there, sorry about that. A lot of teething issues at the start of the season, 8th to 12th. Look, we talk about them getting the 3 wooden spoons in a row. From a Knights supporter, I can fully empathise about how tough that is in a season. And look, Tigers fans shouldn't be looking for 8th, 6th, any of that shit. It should just be get off the bottom. I was at Knights vs Sharks game, round 1. Bit of a long story here, but I remember being in the crowd. It was after the Knights had got 3 wooden spoons in a row and they beat the Sharks, and they had a decent side coming into that team. And the vibe around Newcastle was just, fuck, we're not going to come last this year. That's all we cared about. We're not going to come last. How good's this? You know, I think they end up coming 11th, and then the following year they snuck into the 8th. But it was just such a good feeling knowing that your team isn't going to get the spoon. I think Tigers fans should be a little bit reserved in their optimism of who they've signed and whatnot. There still is a lot of teething issues, but it should be so exciting for Tigers fans that they shouldn't get the spoon with the roster they've got. It'd be the most Tigers thing in the world if they did get the spoon with this roster, but I think it's too good. I think the roster, they've recruited really well. They've all the way from half, lock, front row forward, all these sort of guys have come into the fray. They're very important positions. They already had Api Coruscant, Lockie Galvin in there. They're very good for their spine. I think nothing but upticks there for the Tigers. That's about all we've got time for today, guys. Again, 4020 Cup, get onto it. Code there, 122-155. First prize, $500. Second prize, $250. Third, a bit of merch to run away with. So please go and look at that. You must be following us on Instagram or subscribed on YouTube to jump into that and be eligible for those prizes. Thanks again, legends. Thanks for tuning in. Take care, look after each other, and we'll see you next time. Ta.